Hey, Laurent, how are you doing? How is Paris doing?
Hello, Stan. Hello, everyone. Paris is doing very well. Actually, it's a good day now. We are back to sunny days after almost like a fall weather, and looking forward to the discussion.
That's fantastic. So, if you could just give a 2 minute introduction to yourself and your fund again, just so the audience knows who you guys are.
Yeah, so I'm actually investor in digital health, focusing on Europe, with a particular focus on the growth stage. Really, the theme for me is scaling up across Europe and then expanding globally. And I do that on the back of 25 years experience in healthcare. And my partner is based in London, so we really have a European coverage.
And the audience really wants to know what does the European digital health landscape look like following 2024, which was again a bigger year than 2019, 2018, 2017, but not as big as what we saw in 2020, 2021, 22, 23. Were some of the things that you saw happening in the landscape in 24?
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody knows some of the challenges that company face, especially in this year of uncertainty for the last, let's say, 6 months in Europe. But what is very striking to me is that we are passing, in a way, maybe it's a tipping point where, for the first time, we see very significant, very high value companies moving to the next round. It's not anymore a number of startups, small who succeed a little bit, but scale up starts to be a reality. Remember, I told you we had identified about 3,000 companies in digital health in Europe, 1,000 at this growth stage. What you saw last year, a number of transaction exit of value above 500 million. So it's really becoming super real. And I like to mention always this case of Clue Points, which is a Belgian company acquired by EQT in July 24. I think it's really an example of maybe the tip of the iceberg showing what's happening now in Europe. Really, these high potential scale up companies becoming visible and real.
That's wonderful. And so, what are some of the promising fields that you're seeing? What are the three or four startups that are standing out to you, and in what fields are they in?
Yeah, the three fields more mature here that I would mention is really tech bio or AI in drug discovery, digitized trial, which is obviously how you do the trial with digital tools, but also real world evidence, how you manage the quality of this trial with digital, and then the patient identification. So that's the second field, digitized trial. And the third one is AI diagnostic, and there maybe with a zoom on AI imaging. And I'll mention three startups that I on purpose take not in my portfolio, but outside of it. I would mention Emu Bioscience in UK. I like this one. It's in mostly disease profiling, immunology. Take a look at this. I think it's a very interesting one. I'll take also Cure 8. That's in imaging, but more like chest imaging, respiratory, and then they'll also cover cardiology. It's a very promising area, but also an area of high unmet need. That's why pharma companies are spending so much time on it. And then the third one I mentioned, and you may remember a year and a half ago, I had mentioned it as like maybe a promising company, Ziwig, Ziwig. That's a company who has commercialized saliva test for endometriosis. I think it's very revolutionary. They just got reimbursement in France, expanding in many territories internationally. So watch these.
That makes a lot of sense. I think we're seeing this in a lot of other areas as well. So that's really helpful to see. And are we at an early stage of scale up and global expansion, or are we really getting there at this point?
When you have about 1,000 companies identified at this stage, I would say we are really there. Of course, there is a lot of these 3,000 companies that are now coming there. So you have to manage two elements. One is that's the moment to accelerate them. That's why I'm also focusing on this growth stage level. Is there is actually a huge potential there. And these companies need the funding to accelerate now. It's not for the future. It's not a nice story to work on. They are there. And then there is a second case of companies who are just right before, and we need to help them pass a number of milestones so they can really qualify for that. The challenge with growth stage is not like buyout where you are there, you just need more cash, or startups where you also know you are there. I think the growth stage is we need to pick these companies right after takeoff and before the big inflection point. And of course, when you pick them, they are not immune of remaining risk. So as investor, you still need to be ready to take a bit of a risk and look with my partner, because we have been healthcare operator for many years. We think we can bring them a lot of value.
That makes a ton of sense as well. And what are some of the big things that are happening in 2025? Some of the big dates and some of the big events that you're going to be attending in 2025, and what would you recommend to our audience in terms of them attending those things?
Look, I'll start with April 1 and 2. It's not April's Fool, but it's April 1 and 2 in Paris, between HITLAB and at Hôtel Dieu. Really, this meeting focusing on scaling up across Europe and expanding globally. That's really, I think, putting together US and Europe leading digital health organization, and really spending 2 days with scale-up startups, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and investors to see how we can concretely accelerate, on these themes. Scale up across Europe, expanding globally. For the last 10 years, every country have developed a really, really prolific ecosystem of startups. But now with the coalition of people, we really want to get to the scale up stage. And so mark your agenda, reach out to Stan, reach out to HITLAB, and we'll get a very, very interesting and insightful 2 days. So that's the first day. The second great meeting that I really advise people to go to is, of course, Vivatech, which is happening in June. It's happening in Paris. So that's really an important go-to meeting. And then the third one, that's what I've been going to for now 3 years. This one is going to be the third year. It's in December. It's in Bruges. It's really organized a meeting between investors and startups. It's really just focusing on that, in a way, the pitch or the meeting of the two. It's a bit more than a speed dating because it's happening on 2 days. Really just focusing on these, getting startups, meet investor ready to invest in them. So this is happening in December. These are the 3 meetings. And of course, I on purpose only focused on Europe.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And so one of the things that we've also seen is that there's a lot of very nice translation of digital health technologies from Europe to the US and vice versa, from US technologies to Europe. Maybe you can walk through 1 or 2 of those that you've seen and how they've really helped change patient care for the better over the last 20 years. I mean, like, metadata is a great one. I mean, now it was founded in New York City by Glenn DeVries, out of Columbia University Medical Center. And then, it obviously grew to be 70% of the clinical trial software market over the last 20 years, 25 years. And now it's owned by a French company, Dassault. Yeah. And so that's a great way where you saw American digital health innovation really traveling around the world. That maybe you could talk a little bit more about some of the European digital technologies that are making their way into the US market.
Yes, no, definitely. I think that there is one that, people may know, but I need to mention it. It's Okin. It's a French funded company with actually 2 legs, one strong in Paris, one strong in the US, funded by a French doctor. I think in terms of TechBio, it's really an example of where you want to get to, because in terms of scale up, they really already managed to get quite far. Did some very strong partnership with many big pharma, and now continuing to obviously accelerate with some milestone in terms of delivering with that, which is always the question that people ask. They, I think, made a lot of progress in terms of disease understanding with some very strong insights. They are obviously working on candidates profiling really to deliver on these milestones I was mentioning, and expanding also the span of disease that they are covering. So that's one. I think two, I have to mention, this one is in my portfolio, but I like what I do. It's Wondercraft, the exoskeleton company. Interestingly, they were in one of the HITLAB meeting in New York last year. I think they made actually a lot of progress in their sales in Europe, selling north of 6 million in Europe, and now preparing to launch in the US. So they have an exoskeleton for education, and they have rehabilitation, and they have an exoskeleton for day-to-day usage. It's very interesting how they, very well prepare their launch in the US, and so watch them, for second half of this year. So that's the second one. And then you have, Kinaps, and actually you have a few who are actually in AI imaging. You also have Therapixel, who's getting into the US, that is actually getting there, not just because they want to, they're copycatting the ones already in the US, but because they come with some superior technology. And of course, they can make some big advance and bring some very strong benefits. So it's very interesting to see them. They didn't go there being an early startup with just a great idea, and let's just get into the US because it's a better market. Many of the companies who do that, they generally fail because it is complex to get into the US. But these companies who manage to really pass the first scale-up milestone in Europe and come well equipped, they generally are a lot more successful. So that, again, that's why we push the accelerator in Europe to get a lot more that can expand there.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I think we're seeing a lot of that as well, and across that. And maybe just as a prelim to the summit at Hotel Dieu, maybe give the audience, we have a lot of folks from around the world who don't understand just the prestige and the preeminence and the historical significance of Hotel Dieu, where the summit's going to be located April 1st and 2nd in Paris. Maybe you can give people a little bit of the history of this amazing institution.
Yeah, look, when for the people who don't know where Hotel Dieu is, Hotel Dieu is on the parvis of Notre Dame. So it's just in front of Notre Dame in Paris, right in the center of the city, on the Ile de la Cité, so island of the city. So it's really in the middle. So you have Notre Dame on one side of the square, and on the other side you have Hotel Dieu. It's one of the oldest hospital in France, few hundred years. So you see a long history. And Hotel Dieu as an hospital is part of a APHP, which is Assistance Publique Hôpitaux de Paris, so which is Paris Hospital and Public Assistance. So that's the acronym for the biggest hospital group in Europe. It's about 20 million of patients. So when you think about innovation in digital health, when you think about application of digital health, when you think about scale up of digital health, it's obviously the place to be and partner with in Europe. And for them, it was very natural to do a meeting with HITLAB associated with Columbia, because Columbia has very historical, strong ties with a lot of institutions in Europe. And of course, working on health, digital health, and expansion in Europe before you expand globally, I think is a theme that is very important to obviously the French healthcare community, because you don't just do that for your own city, you do that to impact the largest number of people. So there will be a big, obviously, a great springboard for this theme that will bring a great audience there. And again, you are in a way, the center of Paris, and if you're Parisian, I'm Belgian, so I will say it, and you can laugh, but people say also it's the center of the world. So obviously, what better place to do a meeting like that?
That's fantastic. Laurent, thank you for your time today. This has been absolutely illuminating, and again, appreciate the evidence that you're bringing to bear here on the program.